Good evening and welcome to 7 Stories Up, Creative Evolution, How to Question Everything to Find Your Creative Fulfillment. We are delighted to have you all joining us tonight at the Stavros Niarchos Foundation Library. My name is Allison Nellis, and I'm a supervising librarian of programming and outreach here at SNFL. And before we begin, I'd like to thank the Stavros Niarchos Foundation for making programs like this evening's conversation possible. I'd like to encourage you to visit MIPL's website and take a look at future 7 Stories Up programs just like this one. We have an excellent lineup this season featuring up-and-coming literary voices, one-of-a-kind performances, and hopefully future award-winning nonfiction. We would love for you to join us in this space again. And it is now my pleasure to introduce one of tonight's speakers. He is an Emmy Award-winning producer, creator, and author whose passion for bold storytelling, striking visuals, and unforgettable characters have made him a distinctive voice in the entertainment industry. Most recently, he produced the Emmy Award-winning and Critics' Choice-nominated documentary, Street Gang, How We Got to Sesame Street, which premiered at the Sundance Film Festival. It is distributed by HBO in North America and Universal Pictures globally. The film explores the origins of Sesame Street through the visionaries who created it. In addition to his accomplishments in film production, he is the author of The Unseen Photos of the Street Gang, How We Got to Sesame Street, published by Abrams, offering a behind-the-scenes look at the making of the documentary and the show, while highlighting the groundbreaking efforts of its creators through rare and previously unpublished photographs. His talent also flourishes in the realm of children's literature with the recently authored illustrated book, The Apple That Fell Far from the Tree, a heartfelt exploration of personal identity and the complexities of familial relationships. Previously, he co-created The Not-So-Secret Society, a graphic novel that combines adventure, friendship, and problem-solving in an engaging and educational format for young readers. Building on these publishing successes, he's actively developing Microcosm's slate of original IP, including Lantern City, which captivated audiences with its rich world-building and compelling narrative. His insights have been featured in prominent media outlets such as The Today Show, Hollywood Reporter, The New York Times, Time, Variety, The Hollywood Reporter, and People magazine. In each appearance, he offers a glimpse into his imaginative process and shared journeys behind his work. Honored with an Emmy, 2 Focal Awards, and the LA TV Festival Award, and numerous distinctions. And I would like to welcome to the stage Trevor Crafts.
So it's 2016, September of 2016, and I'm walking into what is going to become one of my most favorite places on planet Earth, and that is the hallowed halls of Sesame Workshop up on Lincoln Center. And I am with my whole team for the very first time. I had been there a couple times, but I had a lot of people there. I had our director, Marilyn Agrillo. I had my wife, my producing partner, Ellen Shara Crafts. Our archival producer was there, and we were knee-deep in pictures just like this, which were all of the amazing archival at Sesame Workshop. Box after box after box of the most fantastic images of the origins of the show, the creators like Joan Gans-Cooney and Jim Henson and John Stone, people that made this iconic show come to life. Now, these are long days because every single piece of photograph or script that we're touching, we have gloves on. This is like the holy grail of television and all of our collective childhood memories that are in our hands. And at the end of a very long day, a person that we had come to know and love, Jody Nussbaum, who was at the workshop, she said, "Come on, guys, I got something special for you. I want you to come with me." Being sort of new at the workshop, I said, "Okay, yes, ma'am, let's go." And I brought the whole team, and we went to one of the other floors at Sesame Workshop, and were able to get this picture taken, which is, let me just say, anybody who has the opportunity to get your picture with Elmo, by all means get it, because it's really a lot of fun. But more than just this ultra fun life bucket moment that got checked off for us was the person behind the Muppet, the person that was helping to set up this photo shoot. And that was Lewis Henry Mitchell, who was then and is now the creative director of character development at Sesame Workshop. What was so intriguing to me was not just that he was helping to put the Muppet in the right place, but also directing the photography to make sure that Elmo was looking right at the camera. He was making sure that this bundle of fluff and felt and foam actually came alive in that picture. And that was a person that I knew I had to get to know a lot. And over the course of the production and working with him, we were able to spend time together. We had lunches together. I was able to learn a little bit more about the origins of this amazing book that you're all about to learn about. But I also realized that he's an amazing teacher. He's an amazing mentor. He is one of those people that is just immediately likable and that you really find so much depth and spark in. Now, if you haven't met Louis or if you don't know who I'm talking about, here is the briefest of glimpses that I'll play over here of Louis Mitchell.
I've been an artist for pretty much my whole life, but I didn't realize that the more I went out and explored other worlds, it wasn't just going to make my art better, it was going to make me better.
The Sesame Street Muppets help tell the stories. Character design is not drawing characters. Character design is communicating through this visual. And it's storytelling. Like the minute you see a character, the story has begun.
Drawing is not actually putting marks on paper. Drawing is drawing in, taking it in. And then the result of that is what you do on paper. We'll always do this if you really appreciate where you are and where you get to go.
So please help me welcome author, artist, amazing guru, fantastic human being, Louis Henry Mitchell. Big guy. There he is. Come on. Get in here. Have a seat. Have a seat. Have a seat. Did you invite all these people? You invited a couple of them.
Couple.
So, this is so great that we're all here and we're able to really get to know Louis and get to know his amazing new book, Qreative Evolution. We're very creative people, you and I so admire your talent, which you saw just the whiffs of in that video, but Louis is an artist of another magnitude that is really unique. Wow. He's also one of the only people that I have known that has only done the job that he wanted to do for his entire life. It is really shocking that that is true. But we have this similar creative spark, right? And what I love about the book is that you're really telling people that read it that they're going to be able to unlock their own creative energy in Qreative Evolution, and they can do with that whatever they want. But since that might be a new experience for some people, I want you to start with, tell me about when you discovered that spark in yourself.
Hi. So
Start with hi.
Yeah, hi. First of all, I just want to thank Blackstone Publishing. I want to thank you for getting me involved. And I'm just beyond, excited beyond words. So when I was a kid, like about 6 years old, I was watching the Ed Sullivan Show. Anybody remember the Ed Sullivan Show? Yeah, a couple of people. You remember the Ed Sullivan Show? So Bobby, oh my gosh. So anyhow, I was watching the Ed Sullivan Show, and whenever they did a Muppet segment, and they always had, Muppets on the show, but and Jim Henson would come out to shake Ed Sullivan's hand after the segment, but I didn't care about him. I didn't, who's that guy? The tall guy with the beard. But one day he came on, and this is the moment that changed my life. He came on, and he still had Kermit. It was a segment where Kermit was playing the piano, and the piano ate him.
Classic.
Muppets.
Classic.
Yeah, and I loved it. But when Jim Henson came out, he still had Kermit on his arm. And I said, you mean a man was doing it? I couldn't believe it. Again, look, I was 6 years old, but 6 years old now is different from 6 years old back then.
Yeah.
A lot different. And it just blew my mind. Something just snapped in my head that never snapped back. So I actually consider that's when I got hired, because I just stayed on that track the whole time. And I remember having to, try to make puppets. I was drawing all kinds of things, and I was stealing my sister's socks. They were so pretty. I mean, it wasn't my fault. They were colorful socks, and I had to have them to make my puppets. You understand, don't you?
Brothers and sisters, this is the way it goes.
Yeah, exactly. So anyhow, it just kept on going from there, and that was the bug. The seed was planted at that moment, and it just carried me through.
And that carried you a very far way. That seed has floated an enormous way down the line.
Absolutely.
So a lot of people here know you and know your work from Sesame Street. So I want you to tell us just a little bit about what is a day at the workshop, at Sesame Workshop, which is, for those that don't know, the nonprofit organization that owns, funds, and creates Sesame Street, only for the last 55 years, so not a long time. So tell us a little bit about what that day looks like for you.
I never know until I get there, because being the creative director of character design, it's like so many different projects that I end up doing. At one point, they called me the director of special projects because they couldn't nail down what I did. So, from the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade balloons to the float that everybody stands on and waves and all the Muppets hide in. Thank you. And designing brand new Muppets and doing photo shoots, directing the photo shoots. And, oh my gosh, teaching artists all over the world how to draw the characters. And, they're not easy. They look easy, but they're not easy. It took me 6 months to learn how to draw Big Bird without having to get corrections. So, yeah, and it goes on and on beyond that. My boss is right there. And he, how you doing, Victor?
So how many characters have you designed overall? How many individual projects have you designed, do you think?
Oh, my gosh. Well, as far as puppets go, maybe about 12 puppets. Now, the only one you may know is Cammy. She's from South Africa. And I didn't actually design her completely. It was a man named Ed Christie. He designed her. But I had to do a logo for Takalani Sesame. And I asked him, I said, I need a shot of her. He was still building, he's still working on her. So I need a shot of her from the front, because she's going to be looking right in the camera with all the other characters. And he says, Louis, I'm still working on her. I don't know what she looks like from the front. So I said, well, look, can I take a stab at it, and maybe if you like it, I'll use it. He said, okay, that's good. So after I did the sketch, I sent it to him. He said, wow, now I know how she looks from the front. I can finish the puppet. And I said, hey, that's great. I helped you with that. Can I help you with more puppets? No, that's my job. But guess whose job it is now?
And just for fun, what would people be surprised about that you have your creative fingerprints all over? What's a project or something that people go, oh, wow, I didn't know that Louis worked on that?
Well, I go back to the Macy's parade, that one person that, thank you. Again, because people don't think about the people behind the scenes that do things like that. And the only reason why I got that is because I had done I don't know if you remember a doll called Sky Dancer. It was a very popular, yeah, awesome, thank you. It's a flying doll. And a lot of people said, oh, girls aren't going to play with a flying doll. That's a boy's doll. Well, it went, it was rivaling Barbie at the time, in the mid-'90s. So Macy's needed a balloon for her. So I said, I've never done a balloon, so I'll give it a shot. And this was another company I was working for. But so I did the balloon, but the cool thing is, when I went to the Macy's studio, I had to go in there and direct them. And I was looking around, and I saw these big boxes, these big wooden crates with these brass plates on them. And they had names of characters, and one of them said Underdog on it. Now, when I was a kid watching the Macy's parade, Underdog was my hero. And I saw the box, it had Underdog on it. I said, excuse me, what are these boxes? So these are the balloons that we don't fly anymore. We just store them. I said, but that says Underdog on it. It says, they said, yeah, that's the only one we made. I ran up and I hugged it the best I could, because it was looking like a giant casket, but I just had to. But yeah, so it's like a fantasy world.
What was that first one that you did?
The first one I did was Sky Dancer.
No, for the workshop.
Oh, it was Big Bird. It was Big Bird. And that was exciting because when I had to work really hard. When I went to the studio, they had what's called a maquette. It's like a small version of a clay version of the balloon beforehand as they're planning it. So the thing is that they're more concerned about flight and all the physics behind balloons. So when I walked in, he looked like Tweety Bird because he had a big head and a little body. And I said, "You're not going to get away with this. You got to be kidding me." And he said, "Well, Louis, you don't understand the physics of flight and all this. I don't want to hear about that. You can't fly that balloon." So they said, "Well, do you know how to sculpt?" I said, "Give me those tools." And I did. I had a very rough, but they said, "Louis, if we try to fly this, inside the head, there's a series of cables to make the shapes. So he has those clusters, and it looks like feathers, and they have to use cables to pull on the inside. If we try to fly that the way you did it, his beak's going to be dragging along Broadway." And so we can't have that. So we went back and forth. So when you see it from the side, he looks kind of squat, but he's designed to be looked from the front, and he looked great from the front. So that worked out very well.
You're busy. That's what you're saying. You're a busy guy.
No, I'm not busy. I'm productive. There's a difference.
But you're also working with the Norman Rockwell Museum. You've gotten to work with National Geographic. You're still obviously incredibly active at Sesame Workshop. How did you find the time to do all of that and also just casually carve out a couple of years and write a 300-page book? I mean, what was the motivation behind the book? How did you protect the time?
Is it really 300 pages?
Something like that.
Awesome. So I learned something a while back, is that when you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, there's plenty of time. It's when you're doing what you're not supposed to be doing that time seems to be flying away. I really felt the call to do this because when I started working at MTV Animation, a lot of the artists would come and say, "Well, how'd you do that?" Or they ask me for advice, and I would give them advice, but it wasn't just technical advice. I was talking about I'm approaching it from my heart. And I said, there's an emotional component to doing all this artwork. So they said, wow, they were so fast and said, "You should start a school, you should write a book." And I said, at first, come on, get out of here. But as time went on, more and more people asked. Wherever I went, people were asking for this. So I said, "You know what, I think I'm being called to do this. A message is coming to me." So I went ahead and I started making notes, but not thinking that it was going to eventually become this book. But yeah, so it was because people said they needed it and they wanted it. It wasn't because I said, "Oh, I'm so smart, I have a book that I want to write." It was because people kept asking me, "You should put this down, you should have a school, you should write a book." So there it is.
I mean, what you really have built here, there it is. Yeah, Qreative Evolution. I mean, what you've built is really, it's like a roadmap for people to follow. It's really like almost like a GPS. And
wow, that's cool, man.
That's going to be in the sequel, by the way. We're going to put that one in. It's the path that they can explore their inner creativity, which you say everybody has. You set up in the book the concept of evolutionary trusts. Mm-hmm. What is, for those that have not read the book yet, what is an evolutionary trust? I mean, I trust you're going to tell us.
Well, the whole idea about trust is instead of a role, because some people like to fill roles, like the role of a father or role of a teacher or whatever. But I said, if you think of a role, it's almost like there's a performance behind it. I said, if you think of it as a trust, you're being entrusted with something. So in that case, you're invested a lot more. Your heart's in it a little bit deeper. So that's why I call each one of the chapters some kind of trust. Either it's called a trust or the spirit of the trust is in each chapter.
And what are those 6?
So this first is Qreative Evolution is the first.
Title of the book, yeah.
Yes, then evolutionary wisdom, evolutionary knowledge, evolutionary practice. Then I have transcendent creativity, and I do have to look. And I did write the book. Yeah, there's evolutionary fellowship.
Yeah.
And then transcendent creativity.
So did all of that get into your brain fully formed? Was it like, boop, there it is.
Absolutely
it's all there.
Not. I can interrupt you right now. Absolutely not. No, the thing is, as you go through life, you pick up a lot of different things. Everybody does. But for me, because everybody kept asking me all these different questions, I was collecting these things and saying, you know what? This really ties into what I'm talking about. This ties into what I'm doing. So just as I collected all these bits of information, Just kept building the vision, and understanding that, you know what, when you are entrusted with something, you're going to bring your whole self to it. And that's really the whole engine behind it. And actually, the premise of the book is that everyone's an artist. Every single person is an artist. I know people don't think that way, because it's not about drawing. It's about creating, and every day you're creating your life, whether you know it or not. You're creating your life every single day. So why not be intentional about that? You know, why not do it on purpose so that you can influence the outcome?
And that influence and being intentional about it, there's actually a kind of a fun story about intentionality that you have, something you did for a lot of weeks, again and again and again, and dropping off some work for a special someone. Tell us a little bit about that.
So my dream, again, after I saw Kermit on the Ed Sullivan Show, I really wanted to, I got to work for Jim Henson somehow. And again, I wasn't thinking about working at the time, but later on when I got to college, I said, you know what, I'm sure they use artists at Sesame Street. So let me, you know, because I didn't know a lot. There wasn't a lot of information available. So I said, you know, let me put together a portfolio and see. So I put together the portfolio and I sent it in. And they said, wow, this is beautiful work. We don't have any work for you, but it's really beautiful. I said, okay, they like my work. So I said, I'm going to go back in a few weeks. And I did a few more pieces, and I kept adding to the portfolio. And then when I met this beautiful person, Jennifer Lupinacci. I have to say her name because she's just the one that, she was at the reception desk. And she kept on encouraging me. I said, no, Louis, I love your work. I'm going to see who I can give it to so that they can, you know.
See it, yeah.
Yeah, see it. So it took me 8 months. And toward the end there, I was going every week, like the last
Every week for 8 months.
Yeah.
It's a long time.
No. At first, it was just every few weeks. Then I just kept getting more concentrated because I said, I got to do this. I have to do this. And I was getting discouraged because there was a teacher in college that told me, Louis, you're aiming way too high. I said, maybe he can help me get this job because, you know, I really want to do this. And I mean, he's a professional. He might know how to do it. And he said, Louis, you're aiming way too high. You're never going to get that job. And, you know, aim lower. I believe in you, but you got to aim lower so you can achieve these goals. But Sesame Street, Jim Henson, forget, you're never going to get that job. And, you know, when I was moping around the house, my mother didn't let me mope around the house. But she made my life a wonder world, and she really encouraged me. So anyhow, I kept going. And that last day, I said, you know what? If I don't get something real this time, then that means that teacher was right, and then I have to give up. So I dropped it off, and I told Jennifer, I said, look, I'm not even going to come back and get the portfolio if I don't get something this time. I said, Louis, you can't give up. I said, no, I'm breaking my own heart. I can't do this. So, but by the time I got home, got a call from a man named Jim Mann. I saw remember the old answering machines with the cassette tapes in it? Well, there was a little blinking red light, and I went and I said, I wonder if that's from Sesame Workshop. It can't be. I pushed it, and sure enough, this gentle voice, hi, Louis Mitchell, this is Jim Mann. You know, I've seen your work. I heard your name around the office, but I've seen your work, and I think you're really good. Why don't you come on up? I'll get you started on a project. And I wore that tape out. I played it. And the thing is, I was going to keep it forever, but after, the 30 or 40th time, it broke. But I think I still actually have the broken tape, but it was just, it blew my mind. So, you know, that teacher told me, you know, even my dad, not that he didn't believe in me, but he thought I was going to end up being a starving artist. So he was trying to encourage me, go to the Army, you know, you'll get free medical help for the rest of your life. And I said, but that wasn't my dream. So my mom was one that said, no, don't pay attention, just keep going. And I kept going, and by the time I got home, I got the message from Jim Mann.
What I think is so interesting in the book is that you call that period of time like an assignment. Like it was your weekly assignment to make sure that you keep going and doing that part. What does using that language mean as an assignment as opposed to I didn't get it or I failed? Well, in order for me to continue doing it, I had to make it a project. That's why every time I went back, I added another piece of artwork to it. So I said, maybe this will help me, maybe that'll help me, just to keep on making it something that almost like a job. And that's why toward the end I was starting to really think, oh God, is this really worth it? What am I doing? But because I did think of it as an assignment, I added pieces. So I had a nice portfolio of Muppet sketches. They weren't any good, but certainly. I'm sure they weren't any good. Yeah, I'm sure they were rubbish.
I had to get trained. Trust me. Like I said, it took me 6 months to learn how to draw Big Bird without getting any art direction.
Yeah, he has no natural talent. It's true. But what I love about that is that you're basically reframing the language, right? You're changing it from failure to something that's positive and that's productive, which is, I think, helpful for all of us, especially as creative individuals, whether you're actively creative in a creative field or not. There's so many barriers that we put up in front of ourselves for
Absolutely. You know, I read something by Miles Davis. He said, "Don't fear mistakes. There aren't any." At first, it made me mad because I said, "No, I make mistakes all the time." But what he meant was that you can always take what you did and turn it into something else. So I learned that failure is not really real. Failure is, it's not failure, it's practice. You keep going because another premise of the book is that you're a work in progress your entire life. I mean, you never land. You're always a work in progress, which means that you can always grow, you can always get better, you know? I love that.
Since we're talking about you getting your first start at the workshop, you designed Julia, the Muppet.
Yes.
And for those, if you don't know who Julia is, we'll talk about that in the back because everybody should know who Julia is. She is the first Muppet, was designed in 2015 that had autism. And that's a very significant thing. It was very significant for the audience. It was really significant for parents.
Yes.
It was significant for television across the board, and
Absolutely.
not a small task that you basically were single-handedly in charge of the design of that. You talk about her in your chapter about evolutionary fellowship and the need for champions. Tell me a little bit more about how those two parts combine together.
Well, the first thing I have to do is mention somebody who's sitting right here. Her name is Rachel London Carter. She's the reason why, you know, she was an intern at Sesame, and she saw me and saw how much I love kids and the artwork and everything. I did a couple of presentations, and she said, "You know, I think you'd be good for the kids." And I didn't want to, you know, hurt them or, you know, disrupt their progress. But she basically said, "You just got to love them." I said, "I could do that." So she invited me to the school and spent time with the kids. And there were two kids I was working with particularly, but the little girl, she really stole my heart. And I remember one time I was helping her put a puzzle together. She was nonverbal, but I was helping her put a puzzle together. And I was holding the piece for her, waiting for her to, you know, to get it. But she thought I didn't know what to do with it, so she snatched it out of my hand. She put it down. She was just a sweetheart. But and I remember the last day, she saw that I had to wait by the door as the kids came out of the school. She thought I guess she thought I was lost. She took my hand. She walked me around to the back where these trailers were. They did like putting pens together and things like that. It just touched my heart so deeply. So and I did not know that Sesame Workshop was working on the autism initiative. They had been working on it for 10 years. And then that's when Dr. Jeanette Betancourt came to my desk one time. And she said, "Louis, you know, we've been working on this autism initiative for like 10 years. And we need a character." And I said, "See, now I know why I was at that school. So I'm so grateful." Thank you, Rachel. I'm so grateful that, that's right, Rachel. I'm so grateful that I had that experience because I would not have touched it if I didn't have the direct experience. I mean, working with them on outings in the school, sometimes even a couple of their homes, I got to really immerse deeply and get to know their families. So they actually asked me to design her family as well. And I remember so many details of, like, well, I don't know how much, you have another question about that, or can I go on?
Continue.
So when I had,
Why am I going to cut him off? This is amazing.
When they asked me to design the family, I said, you know, the families don't consider the children burdens. They're not burdens. They just require more help, more attention sometimes, but they don't see them as burdens. And I saw that. So when I designed Julia, I wanted to subtly show in a storytelling way that the parents have time for themselves. So I gave her mother a pin that was like a hairpin, and it was like a peacock. But the producer said, well, we don't need that. She just, she doesn't have time for that. She just puts her hair back in with bobby pins. I said, look, I've seen the mothers. They do have time for themselves. Even the dad. I gave him a little soul patch. And you guys know, like, Jeff Bezos, right? I was a big fan of Jeff Bezos back in the day. And so I designed him after Jeff Bezos, but I gave him a little soul patch because he had time. It was very well groomed. He looked perfect. So that's little subtle things to show you that, they had time for themselves. And they just pass it off, either they took turns, but they had time for themselves. So I added all that in there. But the producers didn't quite get that. So they didn't use all of it. I even gave the mom a little beauty mark like Marilyn Monroe because even though she was wearing like very casual clothes, But I said, you know what, they're still beautiful. So I gave her a little Marilyn. They said, no, we don't need that. But look, I won ultimately because the biggest detail about Julie is that I wanted to give her human texture hair because I wanted her to look more like a real little girl because she was never going to look in the camera and say, hi, welcome to Sesame Street.
Right.
She was always going to be either drawing or using her tablet or playing with her doll Fluffster. And I said, so people need to be able to connect with her immediately. If she looks more like a real little girl, that would solve that. So I gave her the human texture hair, but the executive producer said, no, I want her to be a regular Muppet. And I said, she's not a regular Muppet. I even changed the angle of her eyes, not to make her look strange, just to make her look like she's thinking differently. And even her nose is the shape of a diamond because she's a diamond in the rough. Now, I didn't tell anybody these things, but I put those, because again, I said a little bit about it in the video, which thank you so much for that great video. But character design is even more than what I said. It's not drawing characters, it's creating a believable entity that can deliver your content. And people just believe it. Like Elmo, if Elmo talks to kids about pretty much anything, they'll believe it. So, the new characters have to have the same kind of power. And that's why I was able to put it into Julia.
And what I love about this part of the story is that you put so many different elements of yourself into Julia. And one of the things in your book is that you boil down art, all of art, into these 4 big buckets of literary, visual, performing, and communication. So
Ultimately.
Tell us why those 4 and what does all that mean?
Well, I wanted to make it simple because, again, sometimes people think they're not artists, but somebody who cooks very well. Well, you're a culinary artist. Sometimes people just jot down little poems for themselves. Well, that's a major thing to be able to write a poem. I'm not a big fan of poetry, but I do know that when it's good, it really captures my heart.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter. I mean, look, and they all kind of blend together because ultimately everything is about communication. That's what art is, about communication. So, if you're cooking, that's a good example. If you're cooking, you're doing the artwork of actually seasoning it, but then when you put it on a plate, that's performance art, because people are going to look at it and they're going to make sure it looks delicious, so they'll eat it. So that's basically what it is. It's just about, they all kind of connect. There's something that I say is like, when I draw, I sculpt. And when I sculpt, I paint. And when I paint, I draw. And it goes in a circle over and over again. Because they're all kind of blended together. That's how I see it.
So for those who are about to read the book, and
everybody.
And you're somebody who's an at-home parent, or you're accountant or an attorney, how do those people use these 4 different streams together?
So no matter what you're doing, you have to approach it, again, when you're approaching your life as an artist, you're going to be able to dig deeper. Because a lot of times people are doing their work. They're saying accountant, right? But why not think more about the life that you're bringing to it? Just the way that you approach it is going to be more as an art if you approach it from your heart. And it seems like you can't do that because they're just numbers. No, you can do that with anything. Whether you're a lawyer. I mean, that's a performance art right there.
100%.
Yeah, I bet you know about that.
Well,
but,
hang on.
not that you're a lawyer, but I love my lawyer. I think he's here, as a matter of fact, somewhere. But no, yeah, it's all about just making sure that you're creating your life as a work of art. So no matter what you touch, you're touching it as an artist because you're coming from a different place. If you just look at it as a chore, you're not going to bring your whole self to it. But the minute you realize, you know what, I'm an artist, so everything that I do is a form of art for me.
Yeah, yeah. And I think the one of the things that as we try to reach that inner creativity, there's so many distractions, there's so many things in our modern world and our modern life that we all sort of face all the time. You and I have spent lots of time working with Sesame Workshop in one way, shape, or form or another, and it seems like a lot of times we're hunched over screens, we've got blue light in our faces, it's late nights. You talk a lot about detox and detoxing from technology, and that using too much technology can sort of erode your creative muscle tone, which now I'm terrified, 100%. But what do you still struggle with this? And tell me more about that part of the book.
So I learned a lot because I read a lot about, there's a man named Neil Postman back in the 90s. And he was trying to warn everybody about how much technology was kind of hurting kids, not just kids, but adults too, but it was really impacting kids. But that was in the mid-90s. Now it's a whole nother world, and it's like, he was trying to let people know we can't take it too far. So again, I think like something like AI, everybody's either afraid of AI or embracing it. I know there's a place for AI. I think in medicine and places like that, but when it comes to human beings, we do have to use our brains, we have to use our minds, we have to use our dexterity. I mean, if all you're doing is this, like I love to play the piano, and I'm using all my fingers when I'm drawing. I draw on paper and pencil. Remember those? That stuff, that's what I do, because again, it's more an organic. And look, we're really ancient beings. We really have to remember that our DNA goes way back, and there are things that we can still tap into so that we can continue to be creative. But when you start using machines or programs to do the work for you, I believe there's a form of atrophy that starts to happen, and you really have to be careful about that. So again, like anything else, anything can be abused. I don't blame the AI. I blame the abuse of AI.
Yeah.
Abuse of any technology.
Yeah.
Is really it's going to hurt you.
And I think that, so in your book, you also talk about words and things, because technology can be a big derailer of your creative life, but also just briefly touch on some of those words, sort of alarm words and things like that. Because I think, again, that sort of negative self-talk, which you really help everybody that reads the book work through in a lot of different ways. Tell us just for a moment about how that can really be a detriment to your creative evolution.
Absolutely, and I think everybody can understand that when you're thinking about something and it's a negative word, you feel the anxiety. You have to kind of convert it into something else. Like the example I used before about the word failure. Now, when you hear the word failure, now like a lot of people say you should always seek to fail because that's where you're going to learn the most and things like that. I guess it's true. I can't say that I don't agree with that, but at the same time, I don't agree with that. I really don't, because failure is a negative word. It puts weight on you. So that's why I call it practice. Instead of calling it failure, I said, no, I can't fail. It's impossible to fail, because if I keep trying, at some point I'm going to learn something. Either I'm going to learn how to do that, or I'm going to learn that I need to do something else beside that. So anytime you hear any kind of a negative word, you have to convert it into something that's going to actually help you think positively. That's why, and the way to do that too is I listen to a lot of very positive, either sermons or really positive messages. And I do that every morning while I'm practicing drawing. Yes, I still practice drawing. I've been a professional for all these years, but I keep practicing. I never want to lose that. But because I do that a lot, my thought patterns are always feeding on that those positive messages. So the first response that I get is based on that thought pattern. It's going to be a positive thought.
Right.
And so it's almost like, not that I'm bulletproof, but certainly I've learned how to, my first response, it's not a reaction, it's a response, is to, convert that into something positive. What do I need to do? Not, oh my God, what's happening to me? No, what do I need to do? And that automatically puts me in a better position to think clearly.
Yeah, because you've rewired your thought process over this long period of time so that you're thinking of something new. All right, so everyone here is inspired to buy the book, and everybody needs to buy the book, because that's why we're here also, because every single we line up in the back, we're all going to buy the book. If somebody's read the book, they devoured it during the week, what is the very next thing that you hope that they do after reading the book on Monday morning?
Go back and read it again, but this time, no, wait, listen. Because there's a picture in here where I show how my books become my friends. And I actually become a co-author of the book, because I write so many notes, and I put stickies, and I put all kinds of things. After a while, it becomes, again, I become a co-author. I call it the library of friends. If you really, really love a book, I mean, not all my books are like this, but I have a special collection in my studio. I have a big book collection in the living room, but in my studio, I have my sacred books. And so that's what I do, So every one of them has all these notes, all these tabs, and all these stickies. And I keep going over and over again, because no matter how many times you read a book, you're always going to go back and find something else in there. It's always something else you can learn from pretty much any book, but especially Qreative Evolution.
So this will be the last question, since sadly we are wrapping up before you all get to ask Louis a bunch of questions. So if one of the greatest teachers of our time, and of course I'm speaking about Grover, if Grover were to ask you, Mr. Louis, "What have you learned after finishing this book?" What would you say to him?
Well, first of you're hired. No.
That was the whole point of this. That was, I got what I needed, so we're good.
That's very interesting. My friend Grover.
What have you learned
What have I
after
learned?
finishing this whole amazing process and project?
That I have a whole lot more to learn. And that's good. Like I
Yeah.
said, everybody's a work in progress for your entire life. That's something to embrace. And it takes the weight off because everybody thinks you have to land a certain place. Now I'm this or I'm that. You're never this or that. You're always going to be changing from the very moment you're born to the very last day of your life. You're a work in progress. So why not embrace that? Why not remain a child? That's the biggest thing too. Remain a child. My greatest I have a lot of mentors. I consider them mentors, like Martin Luther King Jr. He's a mentor. Norman Rockwell's another mentor. Jim Henson, mentor. Leonardo da Vinci, Leonard Bernstein. These are people that I really, really, really cherish. But my greatest mentor is me when I was 6 years old, that little kid that was watching Ed Sullivan. And that thing turned on that never turned back off. That's my hero.
Ladies and gentlemen, this guy, Lewis Henry Mitchell.
Thank you.
Amazing.
I do have one more hero that I want to point out. It's my son, Michael Anthony.
There he is.
Yeah, he's all over the book. And in fact, the very cover of the book has a morning glory on it. And I won't tell you the story. You have to buy the book to hear the story. It's a beautiful story. But the publisher asked for this image. I thought the cover was clever enough. You don't need any more creativity on the cover. They said, no, I think the buyers need something more. So I said, well, can you recommend something? So they asked for that story to be represented. So it's a picture of my son. It looks like a morning glory, but it's really Michael.
So I think we're going to open it up now to a little Q&A for friends out there that have questions for Lewis. I would ask that you just wait. We have some friends from the library that are going to come and bring mics over. Raise hands, but just wait till the mic comes to you before you start asking your question. We got one right here.
Got three, I
two,
see so
three.
far.
We'll start with you. We'll go back to green, and then we'll come over.
Thank you so much. It's such an honor to be here at this wonderful event.
Thank you.
To both of you. And for Lewis, since you created Julia and you were talking about how you went about creating her and about the representation of her, since your book is about how every person is an artist, I was hoping you could just, it's not a very specific question, but just talk a bit more about focusing on positive representation and how that can make an impact in everyone's life, regardless of what type of art they work on.
Nice, that's a good question. Very clear. So I'm thinking that when you, again, going back to the way you think, your thought life, I call it a thought life, that's in the book. You want to make sure that you're building your thought life on positive words. Now, a lot of people are motivated by negative words or like darkness and things like that. I'm not trying to take that away from anybody because everybody's different. But I just noticed that when I did that, it was weighing heavily on me and it was distracting me. So when I started thinking more positively, that's when I started getting more energy because I really believe that our minds are really, I believe they're created to be positive, to run on love, not on hatred or anything like that. And there's a lot of that stuff out there, especially these days. People are very tightly wound. So you really have to make sure that you have if you, like say your diet, right? Your diet, my son got me into the ketogenic diet, which reversed my type 2 diabetes and all kinds of great stuff. Not trying to sell that. I'm just trying to say that.
That's the next book after this one, is it?
But we should do that together, Mike. Write a book about it. Yeah. But I lost some train of thought there. No, I didn't. So yeah. So if you're gonna eat good food, your body's gonna respond to that. Eating, you don't eat just with your mouth. You eat with your eyes. You eat with your ears. You're always eating. So you got to make sure you're deliberately feeding on the kinds of things that are gonna you're designing yourself, basically. You're creating a life and you're designing yourself. You design yourself by what you take in. So if you're reading the kinds of things that get you angry, and like I watch the news in the morning just to get a taste of what's happening, and I cut it off as soon as I possibly can.
It's a good plan, by the way.
Yeah, then I'll put on Sesame Street or something else that's going to give me a nice, really.
We get another one in the back, I think, right there in the green.
Was that good?
Yeah.
Was that a good answer for you? Yes, sir.
Right here, in the middle.
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
Hi.
Hi.
I had the opportunity to intern with you a very long time ago at Sesame Workshop.
Yes, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good.
I wanted to ask, I learned a lot of things from you while I was there that I still carry into my job nowadays, but I was wondering if you had any advice for people who might be suffering from art block, either because of consuming too much negativity about like what's going on in the world, or just in general, if they feel burnt out, because I know you put out so much. What do you do when you feel like tired or burnt out, or an art block, really?
Okay, this is going to be a little tough, okay? I do not believe in art blocks. I don't believe in, you know why? Because we're human beings. We have capacity for so much. You look at some of the most wonderful work that's been done, you know, human beings are capable of so much. So if you're blocked, it's because you're creating the block. And I do talk about that in the book. As a human being, how could you possibly be blocked? And I know there are a lot of therapists, and I want to throw stones at me, you know, when I say things like that. But no, when you're blocked, it just means you need something more. You need either more information, you need a little bit more time, you need to step away from it. It's an indicator, you know, that you need to step away and do something. So I don't believe in blocks. And again, when it comes to advice, there's something I learned a long time ago, that I don't give advice unless I earn the right to give the advice. I have to sit down with you, and I have with you. But but a lot of other people ask for advice, and I said, well, I can't give you advice. I have to know, what are your fears? What are you struggling with? Or what are you excited about? What really makes you inspired? Then I can kind of think about it and put together something that's more specific to you. Because advice, you know, whenever I'm on a panel, I'm always the last panelist. For whatever reason, it just happens. I don't ask for it. I'm just the last panelist. And for a long time, people would ask for, you know, advice, like, you know, especially the one advice that came up at the end of every conversation was, you know, what if I don't have any confidence? If I don't feel confident, what do I do? You know, you guys all made it. All you on the panel made it, but I'm still starting out. What do I do? So everybody would say, you should be confident. You should believe in yourself. And every time that happened, everybody's eyes would glaze over. It was just like, you can't give that answer. And I was one of the people that gave the answers. But I remember that time when it happened. So you know what? This sucks. I can't do this anymore. I have to find out now. How did I get confidence? Because trust me, I'm not the kind of person at the beginning that I'd be sitting up here talking in front of all these beautiful people. I'd try to find a way to get out of here. But I've learned over time how to develop that confidence. So should I tell you, or should you? You promised to buy the book because it's in the book. Well, the thing is that being the last person, you know, of course, they all ask for that same advice. What do you do if you don't have confidence? So the last time I did that, I said, I hope somebody asks me that question because I have the answer now. So I was on a panel of 3 people. They said, you know, you should be confident. You should be confident. The next one, same thing. You should be confident. Then they came to me and said, I hate to disagree with my fellow panelists, but confidence is not a light switch. You can't just be confident. How do you do that? And I wasn't trying to insult them. I was just trying to bring up a point. So I said, you know what it is? I thought about for myself, like, you know, when it came to like anatomy or those really difficult things to study, that I would go to the Art Students League and I would tear up my drawings and throw them away because I thought I wasn't very good at anatomy. But I said, let me keep them and look at them later. I did that. And I said, you know, these aren't bad drawings. It's just that I needed to give myself a chance. So I would go over it and spend a lot of time collecting a lot of drawings. So finally, I remember, without even trying to be confident, I became very confident with my anatomy. I mean, I draw very well now, but back then, you know, I was really struggling with anatomy. And I said, wait a minute, I didn't even try to become confident. It just came as a result of my commitment. So confidence is the byproduct of commitment. You just stay committed, and you wouldn't even have to try to be confident. It's going to happen on its own. When I said that to the young lady, she collapsed in tears, and I said, oh my God, what did I do?
Nice job, Louis. Jeez.
But then she got up and she ran and jumped into my arms, and I wasn't expecting that either. And she said, no, my parents, my teachers, everybody told me I just have to be confident. I didn't know how to do that, but you finally gave me an answer I can live with. So that made me, I get choked up thinking about that, because it's happened several times after that, but that first time, that was really special. Did I answer the question? Thank you, Jenna.
Red. Right in the end there? There you go.
Hi,
Dr.
Louis.
Deborah, how are you, dear?
I'm good, thanks. 2 questions. One is really short. The music that was playing in the background while we were waiting for you, did you compose that?
That last piece I did.
The
How
last
did you, how
piece.
did you even know?
Because it sounds like the piece you sent me. It sounds, the style
Yeah.
was similar. And I'm like,
Yeah, so the
that's
very last
Louis.
piece before Allison did her introduction, that was a Louis original.
Yeah, because I'm writing a, thank you. Not to fool it. Yeah, when you're an artist, I tell this to a lot of artists, you don't try to decide what kind of art you're going to do. You discover it. It's all about discovery. And I remember when I was a kid, I walked into the music room because this girl broke my heart and I didn't know what to do myself. So I kind of wandered into school, wandered into the music room, and started with one finger playing Elton John songs the best I could. But after a while, I started using both hands, and the talent just kind of appeared. It just, So as time went on, I just started to learn Elton John songs, maybe Billy Joel. But then I started hearing other music in my head. I said, well, what's that? And I learned that, but that was my own music. I said, oh, I can write music. So I started doing that, and then I started remember there were a lot of young girls in my neighborhood that they'd get in trouble, and I felt so bad for that. So I decided to dedicate a story, kind of representing all the girls that I saw that got in trouble in my neighborhood, especially one in particular. She had the perfect family, we thought, but she ended up getting pregnant, and they sent her down south, and we all got heartbroken because she was like 15 years old. I said, God, we thought that was like the perfect family. What happened? How could that have happened? But anyhow, so I collected all these girls and made them one character. Her name is Storm. And I tell the story of Storm all the way through with all these. I have all the music written. I'm just still working on the lyrics. But it was a gift. That's why I tell people, don't decide, discover your gifts, because I didn't know I could play the piano, but it was something in me that, thanks to Valerie, who broke my heart, I discovered, playing the piano.
I adore you, but you're really annoying. You're so talented. It's really getting to be too much. You had another question.
Yeah, the second question is, I thought Cookie Monster was your favorite Muppet, but it sounds like Kermit is your favorite Muppet.
No, you were right the first time. I love Kermit. Kermit changed my life. Kermit's the linchpin, the ignition. But Cookie Monster.
Okay.
He is pretty great.
Just making
That's
sure.
my boy.
He is
Let
pretty
me
great.
tell you why real quick. Now, Cookie Monster, he loves cookies, of course, right? But he would give away his last cookie to his friends. He loves his friends more than he loves cookies. More than once, Sesame Street ran out of cookies. And, one time he was looking around for cookies, and he couldn't find one. He looked at a clock, it looked like a cookie. He looked at a bicycle wheel, it looked like a cookie. He saw Oscar's garbage can, it looked like a cookie. And Oscar said, go make cookies somewhere else. He said, that's right, me could go make cookies. So he went to Allen and Mr. Hooper's store, learned how to make cookies. And as soon as they came out, he was all excited about them. Each one looked like a cookie snowflake. Each one so different, me so happy. Then Maria comes, I smell fresh cookie. Oh, yeah, sure, everybody have. And he gave every one of them away. He didn't take one for himself. But then he looked down, oh, no, this catastrophe, what am I going to do? Now, we're talking about Grover. Grover, he has a lot of jobs. That day, of course, he happened to be a cookie delivery truck driver.
Of course.
And Cookie Monster got all the cookies he wanted. So, but again, he didn't know that was going to happen. He gave away without even thinking. So that, to me, is real generosity. He was waiting all day for those cookies, finally got them, and gave each and every one of them away.
You've been working at the workshop for a long time when you can instantly go into full cookie dialect without skipping a beat. We had one more question over here.
We have time for one more.
Hi, Louis. It's nice
Hi.
to see you again. I was at the Future Now conference with
Yes.
our
How you
friends over
doing?
there. Good. So I have a question about the naysayers and the negative people in your life. You talk about negative people, toxic people, and how we need to not listen to them and eliminate that influence from our life. But what happens when that person is somebody very special to you, you love that person, or they didn't start out as a negative influence, but maybe that gradually built over time? How do you exit away from that for your own well-being?
Beautiful question. Nice way to end this questions too. So I'll go to my father again, because my father was dead set against me becoming an artist. He just did not want it. And my mother kept saying, no, don't listen, just keep going. She wasn't trying to make me disrespect him. She just wanted to let me know, look, this is your dream, this is your life. I kind of think of it as a garden, right? Now you have a garden, right? And every now and then a weed's gonna pop up. You want to make sure you pull the weeds. So you don't hold a grudge against these people. You just have to know. That's why I talk about evolutionary fellowship in there. You have to know who you can share your dreams with. And you can't pick these people. They have to be revealed to you. The people who believe in you, they'll protect you through your process. But the people who don't, they'll try to protect you from your process. Meaning, if you trip and fall, then they say, see, you should never even tried that. But the other people that do believe in you, they say, oh, you tripped and fall, let me help you up, and let's try to talk about why you fell. Now, that's somebody that's revealed to you as a member of your tribe. I wanted my dad to be part of my tribe so badly. He just couldn't see it. But my mom, I call her the king of my tribe, not the queen, the king of my tribe, my mom. She loved her so much. But it wasn't until I got the job at Sesame Street that my father finally said, I guess I was wrong, and you don't understand. He didn't admit to anything. But the thing is, again, you just have to make sure that you know who you can share your dreams with. Dreams are sacred. That's a gift that you have that's been planted inside of you. You go and get that dream, and you'll find people. You just have to live honestly and, really live out your own dreams. And you're going to attract the kind of people that's, hey, he's weird like I am, so, he likes Muppets too, whatever. I see you, Bobby. But that's the whole thing. You just have to make sure that you know who you can share your dreams with and your goals. And the naysayers, again, I say the naysayers don't get a vote. That's my cry. But it's just that you just have to make sure that you know who the naysayers are. Don't hold a grudge. Don't burn that energy on holding grudges or getting angry at them. They just don't get it. But there are people that will get it. And eventually the naysayers might they'll either get it or they'll go away. That's happened to me. So thank you for that question.
Thank you. And we are unfortunately at time.
Well, I want to thank Louis. I want to thank the New York Public Library. I want to thank everybody here for coming and joining us on this little soiree into Qreative Evolution. And I believe that there's an area for Louis to sign, I believe.
Yeah, buy the book.
In
Buy
the
book.
back.
Right here at the library. Buy it.
Everybody can buy the book. I heard the bookshop was selling out, so if you got your hands on a copy, it's an incredibly wonderful read. Thank you, everybody, for coming, and enjoy your own Qreative Evolution.
My people.